Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. I'm Lex,
And I'm Vera.
and we're ready to dive into some pretty interesting stuff about Google and how they handle penalties now.
Definitely.
If you're a business owner or, a C-level exec, this deep dive is especially for you because your online presence, let's be honest, is directly tied to your bottom line.
Absolutely. And today we're going to be looking at a recent discussion that's been kind of making waves in the SEO world.
Yeah.
It all started with Barry Schwartz, who's a leading voice in the search marketing industry, and he highlighted some changes to Google's site reputation abuse policy.
And you know what really caught our eye was a question that Vlad Melnick, who's a marketing expert,
Sure.
he posed this question over on LinkedIn.
Okay.
And he asked, what if Google gave websites like a heads up?
Mm-hmm.
Like imagine they gave you a week's notice before they hit you with a penalty that could essentially just wipe you out of the search results.
Right. It's a pretty interesting question, and it really gets to the heart of a bigger debate.
Mm-hmm.
How does Google balance the need to, maintain a really high quality search experience for users, but also
Yeah.
think about the impact these penalties have on businesses, especially when those businesses
Yeah.
might not even realize that they're doing anything wrong.
Right. Because imagine you're running a company and all of a sudden your website traffic just plummets overnight.
Yeah.
You're losing leads, sales are dropping. Your whole team's trying to figure out what went wrong.
I mean, it's like a
For
nightmare for any business owner.
Absolutely.
And Melnick, he makes a really good point about the impact on employees. We're not just talking about some abstract website ranking.
Yeah.
We're talking about people's jobs.
Livelihoods. Yeah.
A sudden penalty could have this ripple effect through a whole organization.
So how did Google respond to this idea of giving websites a warning?
Well, John Mueller, who's a search advocate at Google, he kind of chimed in on this conversation. And he actually said that he generally likes the idea of warnings,
Okay.
but there's a catch.
Uh-huh.
It's a lot more complicated to actually make that happen than it might seem at first.
Yeah.
Because Google's primary mission is to provide users with the best possible search results, right?
Right.
And from their perspective, you can kind of see their point. If they're deliberately leaving up content that could be harmful or low quality,
Yeah.
even for a week, to give a site a chance to fix it, that kind of goes against that core principle. You see what I mean?
Okay, yeah, I see where they're coming from. But what about the situations where a site, maybe they unknowingly violated a policy?
Right.
Maybe there was a technical error, or they just weren't aware of a recent update.
Right.
It just seems a little harsh to just penalize them without any warning.
And that's where you have to differentiate between algorithmic demotion and manual actions.
Yep.
And Mueller actually pointed this out in his response.
Okay.
So algorithmic demotion, you might have heard of this in relation to things like Penguin 4.0. That's when Google's algorithms automatically kind of devalue certain links or aspects of a website.
Okay.
So the site doesn't completely disappear from the search results, but its visibility, it takes a hit.
Gotcha.
Now, manual actions, on the other hand, those are penalties that are applied by Google's team directly,
Okay.
and those can result in pages being completely wiped from the index.
So if we kind of connect this back to Melnick's question,
Yeah.
it seems like he's mainly concerned with those manual actions, right?
Right. The ones that have like the most severe consequences
The ones that can really hurt.
for a business.
Exactly.
And to make things even more interesting, Google recently updated their policy on site reputation abuse. And they basically broadened its scope.
Okay.
And they did this without any prior notice.
Wow.
Which is different from how they handled the initial rollout of the policy, where they gave everyone a 2-month grace period to kind of adjust.
So now we're seeing this inconsistency in their approach, which
Right.
I imagine just adds to the confusion and frustration
Right. Oh,
for
absolutely.
businesses that are trying to navigate these constantly shifting waters.
It's like trying to hit a moving target.
Okay.
And this lack of predictability, it can have real implications.
Yeah.
Think about businesses that might have contracts based on certain traffic levels or content strategies
Right.
that are suddenly considered out of compliance.
Yeah.
They're left scrambling to adapt.
Yeah.
And in the process, they could be losing a lot of revenue and market share.
It's a tough situation, and it really highlights how important it is to not only understand Google's policies, but also to stay ahead of the curve when it comes to potential changes and updates.
Yeah, it really does underscore the need for businesses to be proactive.
Absolutely. But it's almost a catch-22, isn't it? Because you're telling
Yeah.
businesses they need to stay ahead of the curve, but Google doesn't always give you like
Right.
clear signals about what those curves might be. I mean,
Yeah.
if Google's so focused on this user experience, wouldn't warning sites before penalizing them actually lead to like a better search experience for everyone in the long run? Because
Right.
sites would have a chance to fix issues, potentially improve the quality of content and links. I mean,
Yeah.
it seems like it would make things better across the board.
That's a really good point. And
Yeah.
that's really the core of the argument for, transparency and fairness.
Yeah.
Why not give sites the opportunity to correct mistakes and ultimately contribute to, a better internet for everyone?
Right.
But, Google's counter argument is that if they knowingly leave problematic content up even for a short time,
Right.
that directly contradicts their mission to provide the best possible search results, like right now?
Okay, so I see both sides of the coin here.
Yeah.
It's like this balancing act between immediate action and like long-term improvement.
Absolutely.
But how does Google even define like what is bad content? I mean, what actually triggers a penalty?
Well, their algorithms, they take into account hundreds of factors.
Right.
Everything from, keyword stuffing and spammy backlinks to the overall user experience on your site. And you know what? These algorithms are constantly evolving as Google tries to stay ahead of those who are trying to, game the system.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, what you're saying is even if you're playing by the rules today, you're not guaranteed that you won't get hit with a penalty tomorrow because the rules might change
Exactly.
and you might not even know it.
That's the frustrating reality for a lot of businesses.
Yeah.
And it's why, staying informed is so important. But let's get practical. What can businesses actually do to protect themselves in this kind of environment?
Right. It can't just be a matter of crossing your fingers and hoping for the best.
Definitely not. There are definitely steps you can take to minimize your risk. What would you recommend?
I think first and foremost, you need to understand the fundamentals of SEO and Google's webmaster guidelines. Like,
Absolutely.
don't just assume, what Google wants to learn. Take the time to read those guidelines and really familiarize yourself with the best practices. I mean, there's a ton of information available online,
Yeah,
including resources from Google themselves.
absolutely. Education is key.
Yeah, don't just blindly follow what, some SEO guru is promising on social media. Actually do your research and understand
Right.
the principles behind effective SEO.
Exactly. And remember, building a strong, sustainable online presence isn't about, quick fixes or tricks.
Yeah.
It's about creating high quality content that actually provides value to your users, optimizing your website for, a positive user experience,
Right.
and earning backlinks organically through, genuine relationships and collaborations.
So it's about building a solid foundation
Yeah.
rather than trying to cut corners. But what if, despite your best efforts, you do end up getting hit with a penalty?
Right.
What should a business do in that situation?
Okay, first of all, don't panic.
Okay.
It's not the end of the world. Take a deep breath and try to understand why you got the penalty.
Right.
What's the specific reason Google usually provides, some information about why your site has been affected?
So this is where all that proactive research comes in handy, right?
Yeah. You need to be able to decipher what Google is telling you and figure out
Right.
what needs to be fixed.
Precisely. Once you understand the problem,
Mm-hmm.
then you can start taking steps to address it.
Okay.
This might involve removing spammy links or revising your content or even restructuring parts of your website. And, if you're feeling overwhelmed or you're not sure how to proceed,
Yeah.
that's when bringing in an expert can really make all the difference.
Because sometimes you just need that extra set of eyes, right? Like that
That's true.
specialized knowledge to really figure out what's going on and come up
Yeah.
with a solid plan.
Try to navigate, the complexities of SEO all on your own, especially when you're dealing with a penalty, can be like
Yeah.
trying to solve a puzzle, but you're missing half the pieces.
Right.
So, it's often just more efficient and effective to get some guidance from somebody who's, been there, done that, for sure. So to wrap things up, let's kind of bring this all back to our listeners. If you're a business owner or a C-level executive tuning in today, what are the key takeaways you should be walking away with from this deep dive into Google's penalty system?
Well, I think first and foremost, Google's actions, even though sometimes they might seem a bit harsh or a little bit random,
Right.
they are ultimately driven by this mission to deliver the best possible search experience for their users. So that means
Yeah.
your website needs to be aligned with what Google considers to be, high quality
Right.
and user friendly.
And that leads us to the second takeaway, which is this whole debate about whether or not Google should warn websites before penalizing them. I don't think this is going away anytime soon. I mean,
Yeah.
It's a really complex issue with valid arguments on both sides.
Exactly. Google's argument, they're coming from the perspective of, if we leave this potentially problematic content up even temporarily,
Right.
that's going to harm user experience.
Hmm.
But then businesses are saying, hey, we deserve a chance to fix things before we get penalized,
Yeah.
especially if it wasn't intentional.
Right. And then finally, the third takeaway is that these sudden policy changes,
Yes.
like we were talking about earlier with those updated site reputation abuse guidelines,
Uh-huh.
these can have a huge impact on your business.
Oh, for sure.
You really need to be prepared to kind of adapt and adjust your strategies as this whole digital landscape evolves.
The digital landscape is like constantly changing.
Exactly. So here's a final thought for you to kind of ponder, as you navigate the world of online marketing, knowing that Google's focus is so much on delivering that high-quality user experience. What steps can you take to make sure that your website not only avoids penalties, but actually thrives in the search results?
That's a really good question.
I think it's something worth considering because at the end of the day, your online presence
Yeah.
is a reflection of your business.
Yeah.
And in today's world, that online presence is more important than ever.
Absolutely. And if you're looking for some expert guidance on how to navigate, the complexities of SEO or PPC or even social media marketing, especially if you're a Western business trying to reach a global audience,
Yeah.
well, that's where we come in.
Exactly. Here at Shield Media, we specialize in helping businesses like yours really thrive in this digital world.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
we stay ahead of the curve so you don't have to.
Absolutely.
And we can give you the insights and strategies you need to succeed.
For sure.
So don't forget to hit that follow button to stay tuned for more insightful deep dives
Yes.
into the world of digital marketing. And be sure to share this episode with any other business owners or executives who you think might benefit from this conversation.
Yeah, we're all about, sharing knowledge and empowering businesses to succeed online.
Absolutely. Thanks for listening, everyone. And until next time, stay curious and stay ahead of the curve.